Does anyone remember when I made an Azure Empyrea guide? Yeah, that was like a billion years ago, but like even for the time that it was made, I don't think it was a very good video. New players have it rough. They have to compete with 2 years of knowledge, and even MiHoYo themselves have done the fast ults in their tutorials, so if MiHoYo is doing it, you should know how to do it for sure, right? Pretty much every competitive reference like expects you to know every single fast combo that AE has. Of course, when she first came out, no one really actually knew about them for several months, so this is really to get everyone up to speed. Really a much needed video, I think. Starting off AE's rank ups. Since Hoyoverse gave the fragments pretty easily, we can basically expect that in the future, fragments are also going to be very easy to get. As of right now, S0 is good enough for almost every player. That's not in Nirvana, haha. The S2 upgrade is definitely significant, but it's not going to make or break your rotations usually. But the SS passive is definitely underrated by players. I feel like anyone who can make effective use of the S2 passive really does want the SS passive as well. Your combos actually don't have to hit the enemy to get the SP, and it's actually not hard capped at 15 SP. It resets every ult, which means there can be an extremely huge SP gap between SS and below. Anything above SS is pretty much useless. We don't care about her damage at all, so definitely a hard stop at SS0. Next, her affixes. Her affixes are actually a very interesting discussion. You may have heard the warning against SP cost reduction, even the game warns against it. This is actually a very nuanced topic. The whole discussion revolves around Margrave. The glove uses 25 SP, and the 2-set effect is a requirement of 25, which means in rotations where you do not use the ultimate, yeah, SP cost reduction limits your use of Margrave. However, this can actually depend on the rotation. In some fights, we use the ultimate every single rotation, which means there's no point to actually worrying about the 2-set. But the more interesting topic is actually reading the 3-set. The requirement is actually reduced to 15, and the enhanced effect is 120 SP, not 125. This basically means that getting cost reduction on your middle piece is basically optimal. For top and bottom, if you want to be safe, just look for SP regeneration. Going above 4% reduction actually reduces your ability to use the Margrave 3-set. I'm not going to say there's going to be niche ideas that work with more reduction, but I wouldn't advise for it. So in summary, look for SP regen on the top and bottom, while SP reduction on the middle. Now let's move on to her gameplay. So Azure Empyrea's main mechanic is the yin and yang system. To make things easier, I'll say yang is white or A, and yin is black or B. Press attack for A or ult for B. Once you have 3 paint stacks, we can do a combo, which we simply hold attack to do. First of all, the mixed paint is probably the most important combo. It gives 1 SP per second for 15 seconds. This can apply to any Valkyrie on the team, so just switch out and your teammate will get the SP instead. In normal cases, this would be a total of 15 SP, but it can actually go above 15. If there's more than one Valkyrie on the field, such as when Hacker Bunny uses her QTE, then both Valkyries will regenerate SP, and you do actually need to hit the combo to get the SP regeneration, and any part of the combo can hit for this to work. So you'll notice that you can actually like switch out during the mixed paint. The SP regeneration will still apply. You just need to make sure that you actually hit with some part of the move. Mixed paint also gathers enemies. Very useful if you don't have your ultimate up. Another important thing to know about this combo is that it can be significantly sped up. The first requirement of this is that you need some attack speed, which you can get from Margrave B. So in order to speed up the mixed paint, you need to do an attack, then dodge, then hold attack. However, the attack before the dodge cannot be the second basic attack in the sequence, so use either 1, 3, or 4. Moving on to the second combo, which is the black combo. The black combo does a elemental buff to the team. It's pretty useful if you don't have the ultimate. Again, you actually have to hit for this to take place. The most notable feature about this combo is that it's probably the fastest combo that she has. It is important to note that the black combo can also be sped up just like the mixed paint. So again, do basic attack sequence 1, 3, or 4, then dodge, then hold attack, and you get a significantly faster black combo. One very last niche thing I want to talk about with the black combo. This combo has a tendency to be very buggy. Very strange things can happen when you use the black combo. Boss behavior changes when you use the black combo. If you're wondering what's happening, it's basically breaking aggro from the boss for a brief second. Most of the abuse of this interaction has definitely declined. Still pretty important to keep in mind as it's a weird interaction. Now, the last combo is the white combo. The only thing to know about this combo is that it gives 4 SP on hit directly to AE, which is pretty good. We very often use it to get SP, but it cannot be sped up like the other 2 combos. The main purpose of all 3 combos is to basically get SP for the ultimate. Her kit deeply incentivizes different combos to be used. If a different combo is used and it hits the enemy, you actually get 6 SP. That is literally more than what the white combo gives. So in game, typically the sequence is to do the mixed paint, then the white paint, and then the black paint. This is assuming that your goal is just to ult. Special note about this passive is the first combo actually doesn't need to hit. So at the very start of combat, you can actually throw a random combo into the air, typically black, and as a result, your first combo will actually restore 6 more SP. This is also very effective during phase transitions. You can guarantee that your next combo restores 6 SP by throwing a combo that you don't want to use later. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you have double S, you also get SP by throwing combos into the air. Just make sure that the last combo you throw throw out is not one that you're going to hit on the boss. Otherwise, you're siphoning 6 SP away from yourself. Before we move on to the ultimate, I want to take a special note on the QTE. You pretty much always want to turn this off. Since QTE's lengthen switch cooldowns, it's actually very annoying to deal with. And the QTE is almost never used because it's not that useful. Okay, moving on to the ultimate. The ultimate applies both the mixed paint and the black paint. It also has a gather and gives elemental breach to the team. Breach, obviously one of the most insane stats in the entire game, so you will feel a huge difference between using black paint and the ultimate. One thing to note is that the ultimate does not have to hit to apply the breach and the mixed paint. However, the black paint effects actually do not take place. So for new enemies that spawn in, you actually lose a lot of damage on them. Or if you just straight up whiff your ult, you also lose a lot of damage. So the numbers you lose out on is about a 30% elemental buff as well as a 35% debuff. Obviously after dilution it's not as big, but you'll definitely feel the difference. Now of course we have to talk about the fast ult. Fast ult is basically required these days. You literally do less damage if you don't do the fast ult, because a good chunk of the buff durations is chopped off if you don't use it. It's actually extremely easy to do. All you have to do is use one attack before the ult. However, very much like the fast combos, it must not be the second basic attack. So use attack 1, 3, or 4. Very similar to the fast combos, you are allowed to dodge before the ult as well. But unlike the fast combos, you don't have to dodge, it's just a thing that you can do. Obviously, this is dependent on your attack speed. One neat trick that you can do is actually, you can do a fast ult after a fast combo. So if you hold ult after a fast combo, it also does a fast ult, which means you can do this trick with mixed paint and black paint, but obviously not with white paint since that can't be sped up. And if you really wanted to, you can actually evade after the fast combo as well. So something like A, evade, hold B is possible. This gives her a lot of fluidity in her moves. Anyway, moving on. With the modern supports Fischl and Raven, you typically use their ultimates before AE's ult. That is because their ultimates actually don't have time stop and they take way too long. You want to get as much duration as possible on AE's ult on your DPS. The last thing to note about AE's ultimate is that it does have spooky behavior just like the black paint. Once again, this is basically because you are untargetable during the ult, so you're dropping aggro from the boss. And just like with the black paint, dropping aggro from the boss really makes the game quite buggy. The boss may have completely different behavior depending on if you used your ultimate or not. Alright, last thing I want to talk about is the 4th hit basic attack. This is used to ignite enemies, which is very often needed for our fire damage dealers for QTEs. If you evade an attack, you can go straight into the 4th hit, which is obviously very useful for getting quick ignites. There is a special property with this evade though. The ability to go directly into the 4th basic attack is only available for a short amount of time. However, things that you do in between that time is not restricted, which means it is possible to do a combo attack, then directly go into the 4th basic attack. This is easiest to do with the fast black combo. It's also possible with the white combo and the fast mixed paint, but the timing on the evasion has to be very good. So when you actually get this off, you will actually get a bowing panda emoji. Okay, lastly, let's talk about her gear. Nebulous gloves are basically a requirement. They restore a ridiculous amount of SP and also give a pretty significant amount of total damage multiplier. This works on a stack system, which basically means she needs to hit 3 combos to fully stack it. However, using the active also gives you all 3 stacks, which means it's very often that you actually need to use the active to get the max damage. This is obviously because you don't want to do 3 combos every time, you just want to use your ult as soon as possible. So in order to do that, you would actually need to use the active. One interesting note that I found out is that lower stacks actually extend the higher stack. Of course, you actually need to leave the field for this to take place. So hypothetically, if you left the field with the active, did a very fast rotation, and came back, you can actually just do 1 combo to get 1 stack. If you switch out of AE before the first duration is up, it will actually extend the 3 stacks instead. This potentially gives you the opportunity to get the full buff even without using the active. One last but extremely important note about these gloves, and it's really more of a note on Margrave's 3-set effect. The 14, 17, and 20% values from Margrave B and the 3-set effect, if you trigger it again, it actually replaces the other. This basically means you should never use your glove active after the ultimate if you're using Margrave 3. Instead, if you want the maximum amount of damage, always use the active first. Also, if you do get Margrave mid, you can actually leave it at level 1. There's no benefit to leveling it as it doesn't give you any good stats, and actually Margrave mid is technically better at level 1. This is because if you are enough of a gamer, you can actually make use of the S1 passive. Leaving Margrave mid at level 1 will make your AE more squishier, and therefore you'll be able to die more easily, which in this case is actually a good thing. Regarding alternatives on her gear, Margrave is farmable now, so there's really no excuse not to farm it for her. The middle piece is actually the most replaceable, but it's still very good. The most common replacement is Avogadro or some cooldown reduction. Terry Origins mid, for example. If you don't want to farm Margrave mid, you can also use Fuhua Musician mid, but Margrave T and Margrave B basically stick to her like glue. It's very hard to use Azure Empyrea without them, and I feel like that's all that needed to be said about Azure Empyrea. Still an extremely important Valkyrie to know these days. Still the most used Valkyrie, actually. MiHoYo may be trying to push her out, but she's probably still going to be useful for the long future, especially if we consider the fact that we might have 3 triple S bosses at one point. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and leave any questions that you have in the comments below.